All right, so we are going to continue from where we stopped last time. We started with our basic JavaScript we use to build a modal. And we have this button on the page that when you click, it's going to bring out this UI for us. And once this UI is out, the next thing is for us to fill in the information. And we are able to add some basic validation to our phone number here. Like you can submit your form, and as you can see here, it's going to tell you that you've not really complete the phone number here because we have something that we are looking from it, and you've not really give us what we are looking for, and we are giving the hints to the user so that they know what is going on there or what they are supposed to input, because it's not everybody that will know that the phone number you're expecting is 11 digit or it needs to be of a particular stuff. So, and some people can just type nonsense or by mistake or just trying to check your system whether it is okay or not, or it's not having any bug or loophole there. So, and here we are trying to make sure that every data that the user is imputing here is going to be um the data that we want. That means we don't want any nonsense data in our system. Not later on we want to call the customer and we now check their phone number, we are now seeing RT. It's not making sense. So as a developer, you need to validate all the inputs or any of the information you want to collect from user. You don't trust the user. Even you don't trust yourself, because you can even make mistake later on you too when you want to try this thing out. So you don't trust the user of the application. Anytime you want to collect information from the user, you don't trust them. You always validate the input or whatever details they are trying to send to you. And one of the validation here is what we are doing on the form for this input, where we have a series of code that are not optimized. It's just the basic stuff. This is not how you are going to do it in a real sense. But because we are learning now, that's the reason why we started with this basic validation of our phone number. Now, I told you last time, if I want to do it, this thing will not even pass more than 2 lines. And instead of us having this gigantic line that we have here. So this thing will not even pass 2 lines for the condition that I want to do. But because we are trying to learn and to see some of the stuff that we've talked about in use there, that's the reason why I'm doing all this simple stuff by starting with this condition here to check whether the length of the text that you put here is up to like there's 11. So it must not be less and it must not be more there. And what is this length? Any string that you have there, you can check the total number of items that is inside it. For example, here I have this Abdul Rakib now. So this Abdul Rakib now, I can know the number of a character that is inside this quote. And to know the number of character, you just need to use the dot, then followed by length. And as you can see here, it's going to give us the total number of character we have inside the stuff. And that's what we want to use for our phone number here. We are using it to check whether this thing is 11 or not. So, and if it's not 11, you know that that's not a valid Nigeria phone number, because we know all Nigeria phone number line is always 11. But it doesn't stop there. Another thing that we are checking here is that whatever the user pass must be a number, because right now I can type some nonsense stuff and it's still going to be 11. Or is it up to, or is it a number? Because this is 11 now. This character now is 11. But is it number? No. So we want to be able to show validation too when you type something that is not number on the screen there, and it's going to validate this stuff. But right now we are not removing the old validation there. So for that one we're going to do it later on. But for now, I will leave it like that. So this validator here, we have this first one to check the length. We have the second one to check whether it is number. And lastly there, we have this one to check whether it's a valid Nigeria phone number. Because it's not just number alone. It must either start with this one, or this one, or this one, and so forth like that I've already explained at the last class there. So we are going to continue from there by doing the same thing too on this our email and the full name. So for today, we are going to focus on the email parts, or should we start with the full name? Because I don't think we are going to spend more time on the email there's something I want to explain there, but for now, I will start with the this full name. And know when you are talking about full name, where's my placeholder? Let me close this in. No placeholder. Let me add it so that we know what we are the user is supposed to type inside our place. So yeah, we don't put placeholder there. So this one, placeholder, enter your full name like this. So and whatever full name you want to give us, e.g. is going to be uh, this particular name, Abdurraqib. Then what can I use here? So let me just put some random name. So this is what we want from the user. So and then once we click on this, as you can see, this is what we're expecting them to input their first name and the last name. So the pattern we're expecting from the user is to input their first name and the last name, not just one name. It must be two names. So we need to add validator here that the user actually match what we're expecting. For example, here now, we are only putting Abdurraqib, but this is not the only name that we want. We want the name to be first and the last name. So if you click on sign up, we want to show error here that they are not imputing the correct name that we want. So the name you want to insert must be two. But how do we check whether the user is imputing two name or not? Those are the stuff we want to do now. Don't forget, we're able to get the email and the full name. So we need to add a validator too, or we need to validate the full name. That's the full name, because that's the first thing you need to know. Anytime you want to work with JavaScript, the first thing you need to know is what are you trying to do, or what are you trying to achieve. That's the first thing you must know. If you don't know what you are trying to do, then there's no way you are going to put in a code, because this is not like the HTML that when you want to generate button, there is only one way of doing it. Here, you have different way of arriving at a particular solution there, or for a particular problem. You have different way of solving a particular problem. So the first thing you need to know is the problem that you are trying to solve. And our problem here is that we have this box that the user can type in. But whatever the user is typing in, we want to check whether they're giving us their first name and the last name, because we already put it in our placeholder that we want it to be in this form where we are going to have this and this one here. So how do we now validate it that the user actually inputs this? Because just because you specify it here that the user should do it like that doesn't mean they are going to do it. So you still need to check whether they gave you the correct data and in the form that you're expecting it to be or not. So if they are giving you the data the way you want it to be, then there shouldn't be any error. But if they are not giving you the data the way you want it, then you need to tell them that something is missing, or they need to impute the data the way you want it on the screen there. And what do we want to do? We already have access to the full name. The next thing is for us to check whether they are giving us the full name, or they are giving us the first name and the last name together, because they must type the two of them. It has to be something like this. So James Oni. So the first name is James and the last name is Oni. And if you submit it now, you see that we have it. But now, how do we check whether the name is two or not? So you know, in a proper sense, we know that each name are being separated by space. So through this space now, we can split the name into two and check whether whatever they sent to us is okay or not. And you know, every name of the user is always minimum of 3. There is no name that is 2 letters. Most of the name that you see, it always starting from 3 like this. Like this only now, it is 3 letters. So which means their first name must be more or equal to 3. Like means can be 3 or more than 3. The same thing too, their last name must be greater or equal to 3 there. But how do we do all this in code? So let's see how we can put all this in together. But don't forget, the first thing you need to know is what are you trying to do. The first thing you need to know is what am I trying to do. Once you know what you are trying to do, then the next thing is now to put it in code so that the browser can translate everything to the user there. What do we want to do again? What we want to do here is receive their full name, and once they give us the full name, we check whether it match what we are looking for. What are we looking for? They must give us their full name in this format, where they type their first name, followed by a single space, and followed by another name. And once we receive this, we check if whatever name they give us for the first name is greater or equal to 3, and the same time too, the second one too is greater or equal to 3, like that. And that's what we want to do for today's class. And if this thing is not matching, we need to give them the error message, just like the way we did it down here, like that. So let's go into the script. This is the validation for the phone number, so I'm going to collapse them like this. So I'm going to leave a comment, which is always good that you should do that. So validation for phone number, like this. So after everything for phone number, what do we need to do again? We need to add the validations for full name, like this. So what do we want to do? Whatever the user wants to impute, we need to have their first name and the last name. And again, to this, it must not be empty. So how do we know that that stuff is not empty? The first thing you can do here is to check the length. Anytime you are dealing with string, the simplest way of checking whether that thing is empty or not is by using length. For example here, but this thing might cause some problem later on, but I'm going to show you how you can resolve it. So for example here, we have this Abdul now, so I can quickly use the length to check whether something is there or not. We know that if there is something there, the length will be more than 0. So if nothing is there, you know that the length is going to be 0. For example, now if I use empty string, which means the user did not type anything, as you can see, the length is 0. And when length is 0, we know that the user has not typed anything. But what if they have empty space? Can you see that it's working too for empty space? Even though this thing did not make sense, but it still works when they have empty space. So how do we resolve the problem? When you have empty space around your text, not in between, around your text. For example here, I have a space, and I have this Abdul Rakib. So again, I have another space here. So can you see there's space around the text? So how do we remove this space in our code? JavaScript is giving us another functionality on string that we can use, and that thing is known as trim. So anytime you call trim, what it will do is that it will remove unnecessary space around your text, not in between. Or if you have the space in between, it will not touch. It only work on the space around it. So the space that starts and the space that end, that's what trim is going to do. It's going to trim them out. And as you can see here, there's no space again around it. This is what the user will type, but by the time it gets to us, we are removing all those unnecessary space. And why do we need to do this? The reason we need to do it is because once the user type any, like once they put space and we use string on it and we now check the length, you see that it's still 0. Even though something is there, but it is empty. So we remove all those empty space first before we check the length. If you don't remove the space and you are checking the length, you see that this thing will be reporting that you have something inside it, whereas it's just empty text, empty string like this. So when you are dealing with string and you don't want them to have a space there, or you don't allow space, one thing you do on that string is to trim it. And what string going to do is going to remove all this extra space that starts before the text and all the extra space after the text that you have. So it's going to remove all those space. And that's what we want to use here to check first whether you use that type something or not. So we want to check if full name like this, then trim. So we need to trim it first. So trim like this. Then after we trim it, then we check the length, and the length must be greater than 0. So if the length is not, or what we can do here, if it is equal to 0, because we want to do something. So if the length, and what is it going to do here? It will check the full name, the length of it. But before we check the full length, we are trimming it first, which means if the user puts some space around the text, is going to remove all the space first before checking the length. Again too, if you don't have anything inside the box and you just put empty space like this, it will still see it as if you did not type anything because of the way trim works. So when you use trim on the text that have empty space around it, is going to remove those space first before checking the length based on what we have here. And we know that if the thing is equals to 0, it means the user has not typed anything. Because if you have something like this, now let me copy it and come here in this place, put it in this code, and as you can see, using trim, and after that using length like this, as you can see, it's showing 0. So which means the user has not typed anything meaningful inside the box. And since they've not typed anything inside the box, what do we want to show? We want to show a message down here that they've not really input anything for their full name. And based on the experience that you have from the last class there, you know how we are able to generate the p tag on the fly. So what do? We created this p tag, which I'm going to copy it down here because we want to do the same thing too for that place. Then after we have our element, the next thing we need to do is to add the message or the text that is going to be there. And don't forget, when you want to put anything inside it, you can quickly use this inner HTML here. And whatever you put inside the quotes, that's what is going to be inside the p tag by the time it's added to the screen. Don't forget, what you are doing right now, you've not added anything on the screen. You're only creating it inside JavaScript. So you need to put it on the screen later on when you are done with that element. And what do we need to put inside? What we just need to put here is the full name is required. So anytime they type any empty stuff like this inside the box and they submit the form, what we want to show, this is the message that is going to come outside. But right now, the message is not going to come outside. So let me save the code and go back to the page, then submit it. You see that nothing is showing, even though we are creating the element, but it's not on the screen yet. So we need to add it to the screen. And how we did it that last time, we want to add it after this particular input here. So what did we do? We use the sibling, or we use the sibling to kind of add it in its parent by using this functionality that we have here, which is this insert before, because this one allows you to insert this particular element in its parent before a particular child. So here, the contact form 3, what is our form 3? Don't forget, this thing is arranging all your element based on the index. This is 0, this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. So which button is going to add as the third one? So, and we want to add this thing before, or want to add it before this one, or before this one rather, or you can even insert it after if you want to use that method, any one of them here. But since we are using before here, so we are going to go with this. So we have this insert before, so we need to call it again down here. But before we call it, we need to set our class so that it can show this error on it. So I'm going to copy this in again down here because we are creating another element here. Or if you want to call it, so let me call it phone error. So this one should be, so that we don't get confused, so this one should be full name error. But it's not about, it's just a name, so you can call it anything you want. So we are creating this p tag, and we are putting this text inside it, and we add this class so that we can have this style on it. But now that we have the element, the next thing we need to do is to put it where we want it to be on the screen. And where do we want it to be? We want it to be after this input here. It's supposed to appear under this box. And how can you do that? You want to add this in its parent. So what is the parent? The parent is the form. So we need to talk to the form that we want to add this particular stuff inside you. But where do you want to add it? So we can use this, our insert before there like that. So yeah, we want to insert something. What do you want to insert? We want to insert this full name error. We want to insert full name error. But where? Before which element? So we need to insert it before this particular one. So this is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. So, and how did I get all this in? I've shown you last time. When you're dealing with form and you go to that form, it will arrange all its control in this form of array here. And as you can see, the first one is this our input. The second one is this. The third one, which is the one we want to work with. And don't forget, it's based on index there like that. So in order for us to insert something before this one here, we need to use index 2. So which means here now we need to use this contact form, or let me use the same thing that I use up here. Yeah, I use contact form. So contact form, where's our contact form? So we call it and we pass the index of the element that we want to use. And if you look at it here, the index of the element we want to use is 2. So the reason we use the button that time is because we want to insert it before 8. The same thing here too, we want to insert it before this one. And now this thing should show error message on the screen if the user did not type anything inside the box. And as you can see, we have this error message coming out that the full name is required. Why? Because we check the length of whatever the user typed after trimming it, because the user can actually trick you by inputting space like this. And if you don't trim it, this thing will accept space too, because this one will have its own length, which is greater than 0. So since it's greater than 0, it will accept. But this is wrong, because there's the only way your full name is going to be this empty space. So we need to remove all this space out of everything that we have here. And if you still click on sign up, as you can see, it will still bring out the error message like this. But it would be nice if we can remove all this error message before, like whatever error message that is there before, we should be able to remove them. So we should be able to remove them. And how do you do that? The first thing we can do here before we start checking all the validation, we need to check whether this thing have this particular error or not. If it have it, we remove it. But if it doesn't have it, we leave it. But although this one, we are going to add that one in the next class. I want to focus on all these things first. Like, let us take them bit by bit. I don't want to jump so that it will not look as if I'm doing one Chinese stuff like that. So we take it step by step. And that's why we started with this. We are checking whether they type something inside the box. If I want to do this in a real sense, I don't need to be doing too much condition here. It's just one place, it's just one condition that we use with regular expression. But we are learning here, so we need to start with basic. So the other thing we need to check now is to check what else do we need to do. Now the user is actually typing. So the user is actually typing. So they are typing this Abdurraqib. But this one too is not what we are expecting. So let me close this in. Let me close, reload everything. We should be able to clear our error too when the modal is closed. We're going to handle all those one later on. So now imagine the user type Abdurraqib and sign up. You see that first one now is not working again. Why is it not working? Because that this one is saying that the user actually have text and is greater than 0. So there won't be any problem. But to us, we still have problem because the user is only supplying one name, but the user is supposed to supply 2 names separated by space. So how do we check that the user is actually supplying 2 names? That's the next problem that we want to solve. The first problem that we solve here is that the user cannot have empty space in our box. So if you have any empty space without text, then it is error. If you have text and there is space, it will not, we don't care, because we are going to remove that space anyway later on when we want to submit the form. So we are going to remove the space. Even if you have the space here too, it won't complain because we are going to remove that space and it will say that there is something inside it like this. Even though this one too is bad, but we are going to handle it from the code by using our trim to remove the stuff. And it's something that we can do up here directly instead of us trimming the value down here. So instead of us trimming the value again and again every time, what we can do is to do it directly from here. So this is our full name. What we can actually do is just to use the dot trim here directly, because we know that this is where we are setting the full name and the value we are putting there is string. So you can trim it directly from here. So no matter what you type inside the box, we know that we are actually going to get the one without the space. So whether you have space here or you don't have space, the one we are going to have in our own code, as you can see here, there won't be anything like space there because we remove those space by trimming it out there like that. So remove this, and again to remove this one like that, and it will still work. But in our code, we already handle that. But the problem is that user must not have empty space. If you have empty space, as you can see, it's going to bring out the error message on the screen. And we've already dealt with that by using this line, by checking the length. If it is equal to 0, we know that the user did not type anything. So we display the error message that the full name is required. But now that the user has typed something, this is another error again. The user should provide 2 names for us. The first name as their first name and the last one as their surname or the last name. But how do you know that the name that user input here is 2? How do you know that the name that your user input is 2? So JavaScript is still giving us another functionality that we can use here. So let me use it here so that you can see it too. Imagine we have this text, we have this Abdul Rakib here, like this, and I have what can I even put here? So let me just use this one. So now we have this name. So we can actually split this name into array. Don't forget, array is what you can use to hold multiple value at the same time. So we can convert the string that we have here into array of 2 value based on the space that is in between the name. You can use this here too for any other name. If it is 3 names too, you can break them into 3 names by talking to JavaScript that the text that you have here, you want to break them into array based on the single space that is in between them. And we can use something known as split. So just like the name, you want to split what the user type into array. But what are you using to split it? Whatever you pass here, that's what is going to use to split your string. And as you can see here now, I have empty quotes there. As you can see, it will split all of them one by one. When you leave it without space like this, what you are saying is that it's going to split each character that you have there, even including space too, is a character too. But that's not what we want. What we want to do is to split it by space. Can you see what it's now giving us? It's giving us the name separated by the space. So it will split the name based on whatever you pass into it. Assuming your name now is something that you are dealing with, like they need to use semicolon to separate it. So if you want to use this one now to split the stuff, you just come into your split and you use it to split the stuff out. And as you can see, it's still working. So what you need to supply there is whatever you want to use to split the string into array. And whatever you pass into the split, that's what it will look for. And it will keep using that stuff to break your name down. It can be 3 names. Doesn't need to be 2, can be 4. But whatever you pass here, that's what it's always going to use to split them. So this is going to be Rasta here, and this is going to be James. And as you can see, it's splitting all the name based on the semicolon that we have there. But don't forget, semicolon will not be included though. But that's what it's using to break it. So it will be removing it and break it based on this semicolon. So now we have these names and we are breaking it into this array. And as you can see now, there are 4 there. And that's what we want to use. So based on the name that you'll be sending to us later on from the form, we want to check, after we break it in like this, we want to check whether the length is 2 or not. If the length is 2, we know that the name that you give to us is a first name and last name. But if it's not up to 2, we know that one of the name is missing. Because now if you use Abdurrakib alone in your text, so you have this string, you pass Abdurrakib and you split it by space like this, you see that it's only one that is there. So since it's one that the length is there, we know that you only type 1 name. You did not give us 2 names. But if you use split and we see that the length is equal to 2, not more than 2, it can be less than 2 and it can be more than 2 because we are only expecting you to input 2 names. We are not expecting you to input 3 names. So if you check the length and we see that it is exactly 2, we know that you input 2 names. But if it is not up to that, or it's less than that, or it's more than that, we know that whatever you are giving to us is not going to work for what we are expecting from you there. So everything that I talked about now, we can now put it in our code. Because anytime you click on sign up, as you can see, we're going to receive the value. So the value we are receiving here, we need to split it by space and we check the length, whether it is equal to 2 or not. If the length is not equal to 2, we know that the name there is not what we are expecting. And that's what we want to do here. So we want to check else if, because this is another condition on its own. So else if, what do we want to do? So full name like this, then we are going to split it. And what do we want to do there? We want to split it by space. And after this thing is being splitted, you know it's going to get to array. And once it's array, we can now check the length. So if the length is not equal to 2, we know that whatever the user is using here now, we know that the name is not 2. So the name is not 2. Whatever they have here, it is not 2. And what do you want to do? What you want to do is to create another form of error and we display it on the screen. And I'm going to copy what we have on top there. And what we want to display here, what we want to do is that first name or last name is missing, because we don't know which one is missing. You don't know whether this is the first name or last name that they type first, so we don't know. So here we are telling them their first or last name is missing, which I can just do first or last name is missing. And from there they are going to know that, oh, we're supposed to supply either the two of them, supposed to supply the two. Now once you go back to the screen, you press enter again, the first error message is what you are going to see, because that's the first thing it's going to see first. If you check this one, are you having anything inside the box? If they have something, there won't be error. But if you don't have anything, then that is going to be error on the screen. And now where are we going to get the error? When you only have one name. So if you click on sign up now, can you see first or last name is missing? So we check with this one, we can see that the length is okay. But the next thing we need to do is to split the name into two. Then once we split it, we check whether the name is equal to 2 or not, or whether the length is equal to 2 or not. And when is it going to be like that? Whatever you pass into it, once we pass the stuff there like this, we are going to split it by space, because that's how the first and last name are going to be separated. And as you can see, it will only give you length of 1. And since the length is 1, then our error message is going to show out, because that's what we are doing here. We are checking if the name or if the length after this thing has been splitted is not equal to 2. So this is not equal to, we talked about all this operator before. And that's the reason why I always talk about all these things before we start using them. So now we are checking, because we know that the length is going to be number. And since it's going to be number, and we know the stuff we are expecting, 2 names. And since it's 2 names, then the stuff must always be equal to 2. So if it is not now equal to 2, this is what we want to do. So if our full name, after this thing has been splitted into 2, are there. If it is not equal to 2, that means the length of whatever that is there is not up to 2, or it's not even equal to 2, then we know that there is a problem on the UI. Because there is no way you know that the user is actually typing their full name there. But now, after I have this Abdul and Rakib here now, you see that this is 2 names. So this one is going to work. Let me reload it again. And now, let's use Abdul Rakib and space them with just a single space. It's just single space that we're looking for. Then sign up, and as you can see, there is no error, because when you use this Abdul Rakib now and you split it, you see that it's going to be 2 by the time you are done splitting the stuff. So here now, let me pass the split like this, and as you can see, we have 2 names. And since there is 2 names there, the length will be 2. And since the length is 2, then it will not see this part 2. It will not see this part, because the only time it will see this side is when it is not equal to 2. But now since equal to 2, then it will work. But it will not work too when you pass 3 names into it. It will not work. So if you sign up, as you can see, it will do this. The message is not making sense, but when it is 3, but it's something that you can tweak the message later on. But for now, this is just the basic stuff. And what do we need to, how do you confirm it? Copy the stuff, paste it again, or let me just copy the stuff from here. Yeah, let me just paste the stuff. So paste it, then split the stuff by space, and once you split it, as you can see, we have 3 items inside the array here like that. And since it's 3, it is not equal to 2, so it will bring out error that this thing is not up to, or it's not what we are expecting. Even though the message is not making sense when the name is more than 2, but we can add that validator too, that when it is greater than 3, we don't want that. So we can specify different message. But for now, this is the only one I will just undo when it's not 2 like that. Or we can actually change the name by just putting in that only first name and last name are allowed, so that you don't do too much of work from the message. User already know what is going on. So only first and last name are allowed like that. So open this one, then press enter, and if you check now, this thing should work when you use 3 names. So only first name and last name are allowed. The same thing too when it is 2 names. That's the same error message is going to, when it is less than two names, that same error message is going to show, because we don't care whether it is less than two or more than two. This is the error message that we always want to show to the user here, like that. So this thing is very, very important, because it allows you to, like, you have the power with JavaScript. You have a lot of power in your end to shape your program anyhow you want, like that. Yeah. Yeah, so this is how this thing works. So we have the full name, and now we have our validator. But there's another problem. That's the thing about your coding stuff. You always solve one problem from one problem to another. That's what you always do most of the time, and that's why you always take time to build application, because you need to take care a lot of different scenario that can happen in your application. You might not be able to take care of everything, but anyone that you know that, oh, this thing can cause problem, you always take care of it. Not that you wait until the user figure this thing out, and it can cost you a lot. Now imagine you are working for a bank, and you want to transfer more. You are creating an application that can transfer money, and you did not check whether the money they want to transfer is more than what that person have in their account. You know, if someone discover that stuff, will you tell the bank that they are not checking the amount? You have 2K in your account, but you try to send 200K, and the thing just go like that, and it's successful. You tell the bank? No. The next thing you start doing is to keep repeating the stuff. So, and you that want to big application, you need to check a lot of things, and that's what you always do most of the time. So this name now, we are able to solve two problems. The first problem is that the user must put something inside the box. The second problem is that we expect them to input first name and last name separated by space. So again, that's this one work. But now, another problem that can occur here is that, what if the user put their name like this? I just put Q space R like this. You see that this one too will work. You can see that there is no error. But there's no way this thing is making sense. There's no way your first name is going to be Q and your last name is R. It's not making sense. There's no way your first name will be Q and your last name will be R. Because some people now, you can't trust people. We have different people, they can behave in different way. So you need to make sure that everything that can occur, every silly stuff that can occur in the program that can make your data not to be reliable, you need to take care of them, or you need to validate them. And that's why you cannot pass negative money when you want to transfer this thing, because they've taken care of all this thing. You cannot even put negative value there. It will not work, because they've taken care of the stuff like that. Again, too, you can't put the money that is more than what you have in your account balance. The thing will check, and if you put what is more than what you have in your account balance, it will tell you that you don't have the money to transfer that stuff. So they are validating your input. Here too, we are validating our user input. They want to sign up, and when you want to sign up, you need to give us your email, your full name, and your phone number. And we know the pattern that all these things are going to come, because the data you want to collect, you know the pattern. Then the next thing you do is to create the validation that is going to cross-check whatever the user type inside the box that you provided for them. And if any of the information is not coming back the way you're expecting it to be, the next thing is for you to tell them that this thing that you're sending to me is wrong. And how do you do that? Is by using your JavaScript to undo all these things there like that. There is no form you fill online that they are not going to handle. So if you go to any documentation or any site that requires login or something like that, they will always check there. There's nothing you want to do. If you put any wrong stuff, they will tell you that what you put there is wrong. And as you can see now, this is their own this thing here where I can input the money, and they are expecting email. But now let me click on next without input email. Can you see what come outside? There was an error. There's no way you'll be able to proceed from this line until you solve. But look at the way they do their own. For the same experience that you're going to have from here, it's still the same thing that you're going to be using here. The difference there is how they are displaying their error or whatever they are checking there. See, their own error message is not displaying down here. it's appearing at the top here, and it disappear after some few seconds there. We can do this one too with our own error message, like it's going to disappear after some time, like that. Something that we can do. But let's do some basic stuff first before we get into that part. This is one side. There's no way you want to do anything on any side and they require you to put your information, or they want to get information from you to process some stuff, and you are now inserting wrong stuff. They will always inform you that what you put there, it's wrong, or that's not what we are expecting from you, and so forth like that. You always see it. So here too, if I continue with email, as you can see, which is like the application of what we are trying to do right now. They have their email box and password. And once you click on login without putting anything there, even these people even have some crazy validation into their own, what do they say? Oh, crosswalk. So yeah, let me do this. Oh, so don't let me waste time on this. Their one is even silly. Traffic light. So this is traffic light verify. And where they have this moment verification is done, I should be able to get error on this thing, but because they are using Google capture here, so their one is even silly that I don't want. And as you can see, their one this stuff here. Let me click on this. It did not even do anything. As you can see, their one, they are not even showing any error message, which is not making sense to me. Any research you kind of impute, yeah. So it's when you enter it that the message is not coming out. So you enter the box and you did not type anything, the message is not coming out. But when you submit, the message is not coming out. So it all depends on how you want to handle your site. You can see it's when you click that the message is coming out there, like that. If I click on sign up, and I can do whatever I want. And that's what we are trying to do here. So whatever data the user wants to impute in your system, you need to validate it. You need to check whether it is okay or not. And the next validation we want to do now is here. So we know that the user is going to input their first name, which is something we are getting already. So we have this QR now. So what do we want to do? We want to split it just like the way we did it before by space. Then after splitting the stuff, so the next thing we need to do is to check whether the first item you sent to us is more than 3, and at the same time too, the second one too is more than 3. So whatever you send in to us, for the first one, it must be greater or equal to 3, and the second one too, it must be greater or equal to 3. And how do you do that? You know, it's still the same length we are going to use it. So we split this stuff. We take the first one that is there. Don't forget array. You use the index to access the value. Then on it, we are going to trim the stuff because we don't know whether there is going to be space or not in between them. So after trimming the stuff, the next thing we need to do is to check whether the length is greater or equal to 3. And as you can see here now, you know the first item now is telling us that it's not greater. That's why it's returning false. As you can see that it's returned false. But now if I try it with a text for the first one, maybe like this, I type Abdul like this. Can you see? For the first one, it's returning true. But if you try it again for the second one, how do we get the second one there? It's just by replacing 0 with 1. Can you see that it did not work for the second one? So this is what we need to do. We need to check, after we already split the text, we check the first one. The length must be equal to or greater than 3. Again too, we check the second one. The length must be equal to or greater than 3. And if the two of them are true, then we know that whatever the user is putting here, it's at least more than 3. The text that we have there for each one of them is at least more or equal to 3, or at least the letter for each one of the name there is going to be 3. And if it's not up to that, then we are going to get false. And this is what we need to do here for this simple case. What do we need to do? We split the stuff just like the way we did before, but now we take the first one. Don't forget, when you split, it will give you an array. And as you can see, to get the first one, you use index 0. To get the second one, you use index 1. And that's what I'm doing here. So I can use 0 now to get the first name that is inside this stuff. After we have done breaking it into 2, then what did I do? I trim it in case there is any space there. Right now there is no space there, but in case there is any space, I'm trimming it first. Then after this thing is done trimming the stuff, what do? We check the length, whether it is greater or equal to 3. So if it's greater or equal to 3, we know that their name is satisfying our condition, which is going to be the first three letter like this. So it must be three letter for the first name. Again, too, the second name too must be three letter like this. This is what we are expecting. I don't care whether this thing is making sense or not, but this thing must be at least 3 character long for each one of the name. And that's what we need to do as the next solution to our problem. So here now we need to check. So as if, what do we want to do? The full name here. So we are going to split it. After we are done splitting the stuff, we need to take the first one. So how do we take the first one? By using 0. Then after taking the first one, we can trim it, and after trimming it, we get the length of the stuff, and it must be greater or equals to 3. So the minimum is 3, it can be less than 3. So this is the first one. So this is the first one, and we can actually handle this one like this. So by just telling them that their first name must, or they are giving us invalid first name. So if their name is not greater than 3, that's what we need to do here. We need to negate the stuff. So if it is not greater or equal to 3, can you guess how can I represent this thing? How can I represent not greater? Hello?
I'm with you, sir.
So how can I represent not greater? Yeah, what we want here is that it, because right now this is what we're expecting, but we need to negate the stuff that whatever they want to send to us, it must not be less, or it must not be less than 3. So how do I do the operator here? What do I need to? Because this one now is looking for when it's greater or equals to 3. But what I'm supposed to use there is when it's not up to 3. So how can you do this in? Because what we are doing here is that when it's not up to 3, that's when we want to show the error. So what do I need to type here? This is not, I need to reverse this thing.
Yeah.
So what do I need to look? I said not up to 3. How do I write the condition? Because the only time I want to show the error is when it is less than 3. If it is equals to 3 or more than 3, we don't want to show error. But if it is less than 3, we want to show error. So what do I need to use there? What operator do I need to use there? What operator do I need to use?
So is it the operator or it is how you write
No,
the
no, no, it's the
conditional
operator.
statements?
It's operator. The operator. I already put everything. Is this operator here? This is the only thing that I'm expecting from here. What I just clean now. What is it? I said less like
Okay.
it must not be up, like it is not up to 3. So how do I write the operator there? When the thing
Yeah,
is not
yeah,
up to,
less than.
so which means it's going to be, this is what we need to use here. Less than. So when it is less than 3, don't forget we are not including 3 like this. So anytime it is less, whatever you type here is not up to 3, that's what this thing means. If it's not up to 3, that's when it will be true. And when it is true, what do we want to show? We want to show a particular error message to the user. And what is the error? We are checking for the first one. So this is for the first one. So which means their first name is not valid. So here now we can just say your first name is not valid. So anytime whatever they type here, if it's not up to 3, this is it. Assuming you type TE like this and you now type Oni. So this is the first one that we are checking. We are checking this letter here before the space. So we are checking it whether it is less than 3. So if it is less than 3, these are what we want to do. This is what we want to do here. But if it's not less than 3, then it will not do anything. And we need to do the same thing too for when the stuff is the second one, which is the second name. Normally, if I want to do this thing, I don't need to separate them like this. But for the basic stuff, that's why I'm doing it in this way. So this one, instead of first name, is going to be last name. So what did we do here? First, we check the length of the stuff. If it is 0, user have not typed anything. Yeah, so this is the error we want to show. But if the user already typed something, we want to check whether whatever you type, it's first name and last name. That's what this one is doing here. So when you check it, if the thing is not 2 name that you put there, we know that after we split it into 2, or after we split it into array, the length will not be 2. If it's not 2 name that you type there. If it is less than 2 or is more than 2, it will not be equals to 2. And when it's not equals to 2, then this is the error we want to show. But apart from that, look at it now. It's accepting this name. Whereas this is wrong. I've never seen anybody name two letter like this. It's always starting from 3. So we don't want the user to input name as this two letter. It must be 3 or more. So, and that's what we are now doing here. But now, after we split it, so after we split the name, because this is the name that the user typed right now. So we get the name. So what do? We split it. So we split the stuff by space. Then after splitting it, can you see that we now have access to the first one and the last one there. So to get access to the first one, what do? We use index 0 to have access to that value. Then after having access to that value, what do? We trim it in case there is any space. Right now there is no space, so no problem. Then after trimming it, what do? We get the length and we now check whether it's less than 3. Can you see that it is true? So since the length is less than 3, it means we need to show this particular error that your first name is not valid. And that's what we want to do for the second one too. So after we are done for the first one, we do it for the second one too by changing the index to 1. Because when you change the index to 1, it's going to give us the value at that second place. Because the index, don't forget when you're dealing with array, this is index 0 and this is index 1. And that's what we are doing. So everything that we've learned is what we are putting together to solve our problem there. And here, what do we have? Like this. What we have now, after getting this, we trim it, just like the way we did it for the first one. We are still going to get Oni because there is no space there. Then after that, we get the length and we check whether it's less than 3. And as you can see that this one is false. So which means our last name is okay, but the first name is not okay based on the data that I input here. And once you saved, or once we save this code now and try it again with that same data, you see that we are going to get error for the stuff. So I have this TE and I have Oni. So if you sign up, can you see your first name is not valid? Because we check it whether it's greater than 3 or equals to 3. But you know, it's when it's not up to that we want to show the error, not when it is greater or equal to. Because we need to negate. And since we are negating the stuff, that's why it is less than here. The same thing too, if your first name is already okay, we are checking for the second name too, not just only the first name. So when you do the same thing with the second name too, maybe here I have Oni and I have JS like this. So if I sign up, as you can see, your last name is not valid because there is no way your last name will be 2 letters. But now, if it is everything is okay, for example, here we put Abdul like this and I put Rakib like this, you see that it will accept it because this one is more than 3 and this one too is more than or equal to 3 because we are including 3 in the list too. And as you can see, our first name, we're able to first and last, or the full name in general, we're able to add our validator to the list by using some of these simple stuff on the string there. What do we use today? We use something that we've used before, which is the length. Another thing that we added today is just this split. So we added this split and we added this trim. These are the only things that I know that we've not talked about before. And that's the reason why I'm doing them here first before putting in a code so that you see what they are doing behind the scene. So what's the job of the split? Anytime you have a text and you want to break them down, then you can use the split. So if you use split like this, if you don't put anything there, as you can see, it will just return it back to you in a form of array. But if whatever you want to use, if you put empty string like this, it will break all the text one by one. So it will break them, all of them, one by one. But what if you have a space in the text? So for example, I have a Rasta and Sam like this, but I want to break them down based on that space, so we can use splits. And here now, we just use, don't forget, it's only one that I use. So if you put more than what you're expecting, as you can see, it will not work. Because whatever you put here, it will look it inside the text, and that's what it will use. So since it's just only single space, then we need to split it by single space. And as you can see, it will break the name into the array here. And if you want to have access to any one of them, you can use the index to pick them up. And that's what we are doing in the code here. Nothing much like that. And this is where I'll be stopping for today like that. And in the next class, we are going to be dealing with the email and again add some other goodies into this stuff here, so that it's going to look like the way you are seeing from all this application that is online there like that. Let me see, is there a site here where you can log in? Any site you can log in, there's no way they will not validate your input, because they need to know that you are imputing correct information there. So look at this one now. We have this form. Click on sign up. Can you see? Fill all the field. Even though their own they did not put, even though this thing has been long, so their own they did not put the error message on each one of them. You have to, they just put the message here like that, which is not helping for a beginner like that. Like, if I want to fill this form now, I don't know what to do. This error message is not telling me what is missing and what is not missing. It just didn't fill all the field like that. But it all depends on the site or how you want to handle your error. But you see that all of them will at least follow this kind of a same pattern, where you have the message popping out anytime you try to submit the form, or when you even go to the box. That's where the error. See that this one now, when you go to the box, it's not coming out. So it all depends on what you are trying to do. And that's the reason why I said that the first thing you need to know is, what are you trying to do? Because you can do this thing in different way depending on what you want on that site. So you know what you want to do, then from there you start bringing everything together by using what you've known in JavaScript to make this thing to be possible there like that. So this thing is not that, you just need to know what you want to do. And as you can see there, this one will not search because I do not have inside, I do not have anything. See that this one is not showing error message, but anytime you click and don't have something there, it will just tell you that, like, it will just blink back that you've not have anything. But now if I type something and if I search there, that's when it's not going to perform the search for me like that, which is doing already, but they do not have anything like that. So that's why it's not showing. But now let me type JavaScript there. And since they have JavaScript, and once you click in, as you can see, it will go to that page. But you can't go to anywhere unless you search what you want on that page. So different sites with their different way of handling the stuff. See the same thing here too. If you click on login, they will have their own login page too, where you can log in with email. Let me scroll down. As you can see, this is the box. And now click on login, and can you see unable to log in, whatever stuff, because I did not type anything. So it all depends on the site that you're working with. Each one of them have different ways of displaying their message based on what is going on the site. And the same techniques that we're using right now is what all of them are using. The difference is just the placement and the UI, or the type of the information we are trying to get. So that's just the differences. And that's going to be all for today. I'm stopping recording now. 1, 2, 3, stop.